Welcome to our third and final 2024 season preview edition of Bruce Monan's Computer Points. I'm Bruce, of course, your host. Also here we have our co-host, executive producer, and chief researcher, and no new titles for the third podcast in a row, Rebekah. Rebekah
I'm
Monan.
perfectly happy with that. The titles are getting a little overwhelming. Although at the moment, I'll gladly take the title of preferred chair for my cat Felix, because he is not leaving home today. Shedding like crazy, too.
I just want to tell you I've made preliminary arrangements. Don't know if we'll actually come through or not to get 30 some board gamers who've had too much to drink to sing our Team of the Week theme song for next season.
Oh boy, that should be melodic and harmonious.
Yes. There will be one guy who actually knows what he's doing with a keyboard and play
Oh,
like
with a
any song that
keyboard.
comes up. Yeah. So I know he has to know Sweet Caroline, so we're good from there, right?
Oh, I look forward to hearing what that turns out.
If not, we'll try to do it next week with the Huffman family singers, right?
That will not.
It will not. All right.
You can dream.
I can dream. That's about it, though. I'm probably dreaming on the board game one, too. But anyway, back again for his third consecutive episode of the year. We just can't get enough of the man. His sixth appearance overall is our guest, Mr. Van Wright.
Bruce and Rebekah, thank you again for the invitation. I know it's a lot of work going through my agent and getting these things set up, and I appreciate you taking the extra time to do it. Congratulations to Rebekah. Her business card with her titles, the only business card in the United States that is printed on both sides with titles. It's the only one I've ever received with two sides of titles. So that's to congratulate Rebekah on that.
To add to your collection, a shade job as well.
I would love to have the official one also to go with this unofficial one.
As I seem to remember at the bottom, you have your nice business card, and then there's that little word that says over at the bottom. You
Yeah,
flip the card over, and there it all is.
Mm-hmm.
you got to keep the front side pretty.
Oh, yeah. In this episode, we will preview the Division 7 teams from our West Central Ohio coverage area. And we'll also take a brief look at the teams participating in 8-man football this year. And again, as we mentioned before, we will use the results of the last 4 seasons to put teams via a mathematical projection with no opinion at all. So don't blame me if you don't like where it says you're at, because I didn't do it. It's just a spreadsheet thing. Well, maybe I designed a spreadsheet.
You
But
might have had some hand.
we'll divide teams into likely playoff teams, possible playoff teams, and the teams that need to get their programs turned around. Starting Division 7, Region 26. Rebekah's been known to worry that we're going to cover too many teams in Division 7, and she is correct. Oh, look at that face. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
16.
Mm.
16 of them.
Mm.
16
Of the
teams
total
we cover.
27.
Well, you know what would be great?
If all
There are
16 of them got
16
into the
playoff
playoffs.
spots. Absolutely. And trust me, if that becomes possible, that may be a feature on future episodes of this podcast.
It might be.
Our likely playoff teams, and we're just going to list them off here to start with. Columbus Grove, probably the favorite, Peter points wise in this region. Antwerp, Macomb, Lima Central Catholic. Ooh, and I have started to hear some talk that they're starting to recruit a little better at Lima Senior. They might be getting a few kids back from Lima Central Catholic. We'll see. Defiance Ayersville, Pandora Gilboa, and Upper Saudo Valley, all teams that look very good for making playoffs. Teams that are a little iffier for the postseason include Leipzig, although I think they're going to be in, but that's just me. And I put Arlington in the same boat. But I have maybe a tougher time of it. Hardin Northern, Delphus St. John's, Ada, and Delphus Jefferson. That reminds me, I believe, Van, that the old Delphus St. John's, Delphus Jefferson game is no more. They quit playing that one.
That's right. I believe that is correct, and that's kind of a sad day. I have seen some cooperation between these schools, though, in the area of admissions and guidance counselors in terms of a college fair there for their community. So maybe we can get the football teams back in. So the schools are I think communicating well there, but we need to get the football game back in action.
Well, that's good to hear. You've got both schools right there. They ought to share a few resources together, I think.
Yes.
Our teams that are going to have a tougher time of it currently listed as unlikely playoff teams, we have Arcadia, Corey Rawson, and Van Loo. And with Van Loo, we'll see what happens. Usually the big struggle is the gamble on whether or not they'll have enough people to finish out the season on their team. I keep waiting for the inevitable drop to 8-man football, but they're sticking with it at Van Loo for yet another year. So,
Bruce, as you know, I addressed the senior class at Van Loo. I was honored to do that this year at their awards event at Van Loo. So they had 17 students in their class this year. We had a couple choose BG, but I was asked to address the group, and it was great. We had a beautiful day. But as I sat there and looked out at those 17 seniors and the faculty and staff and the parents, I did think when I was done with my remarks and I was sitting just quietly looking, I said to myself, how can Van Loo play football at this level? And I just don't know. I just don't know. The entire school was in the room, and I just don't know how they can do it. And I love them, but I don't know how they can do it.
yeah, I don't know either. So, but they keep running teams out every year, and the kids keep coming out for the team. That's the part that amazes me.
They do.
They're motivated.
They do. They get 20, 24 guys out there, 24 guys maybe is at that max. That's about everybody that's in the school, freshman through senior, who's a male. Yeah.
All right. Starting at the top, Columbus Grove had the most points in their Division 6 region last year with an 8-2 record. So, first of all, having the most points with an 8-2 record means you beat some teams that had some wins, and now they're Division 7. So it should be slightly easier getting in the playoffs and possibly being the top team or two in this region. Other teams looking great. I have Antwerp 9-1 last year before a first-round playoff loss to Arlington. Macomb went 8-2 and then reeled off 3 playoff wins. Lima Central Catholic went 6-3, had 2 playoff wins. Ayersville had 8-2. Unfortunately, drew LCC in the first round of the playoffs and got knocked out. Pandora Gilboa 7-3 last year. Upper Soto Valley 8-2. So another 2 team. I don't see any reason those teams shouldn't be able to score enough points again this year to return to the postseason. There are 2 teams that I think look good. The projections say they're closer to the playoff cut line, but I think they still look good. That would be Leipzig. They were 8-2 last year. Arlington went 6-3, got that first round playoff upset over Antwerp. I see no reason those teams also shouldn't be able to rack up enough points, other than I'm starting to fill up all the playoff spots of all these teams, Rebecca. That's where the problem tends to come in. Yes. But what I say, 27 teams in this region, I think. There were 33 last year. So things just got a little easier this year with 6 less teams to deal with.
Bruce, a year ago, you asked me about Macomb, and I guaranteed on this podcast 12 months ago that Macomb would have a tremendous year and surprise. I was correct, as Rebekah has noted on her pre-podcast notes to me. I'm saying again right now, Macomb. The Panthers, when I walk in the building, they're built to play football. This is what we do. We're out here, we're grinding, we're pulling our bootstraps up, we're going to work. It's the Panthers. Watch out for Macomb. Also on this list you have of going, there's one sleeper. You have men, which is true, but my sleeper there, Leipzig, the Vikings, right down the road from Macomb. The Vikings are very similar. When you drive into town, they're thinking one thing: we win in football.
I'm just trying to think the last time I drove through Leipzig. I think it's been at least once this year. So yeah, I know what you mean, but I haven't been through there near as much as I used to. But let's see, what else were we saying? Oh, borderline teams. Barden Northern missed the playoffs last year with a 6-4 record. One of those teams that really suffered from there being 33 teams in their region. Again, down to 27 this year. Should be a little better. They even beat a 6-4 team in Ridgedale in one of those 6 wins and still missed the playoffs last year. That was grumpy last year about that region having 33 teams, and I'm still grumpy about it this year. You can't tell. It's not there anymore, but I still think that was a darn shame last year. Delta St. John's missed out with a 4-6 record last year, even though they beat 6-3 Lima Central Catholic. Again, just too many teams in this region last year. You needed a lot of computer points to make the postseason. So it should be a little easier for Delphus this year. Can they do that well again? They have that tough MAC schedule. I believe they are still playing LCC again. Going to take some work to rack up the wins for Delphus St. John's. Ada went 3-7 last year, but they had a win over 7-3 Upper Scioto Valley. Again, you've heard in other regions we've previewed, that would have been good enough in many regions last year. Now we went to our other teams. Delphus Jefferson was only 1-9 last year. They're going to need to do a lot better. Arcadia was 2-8. Corey Rawson 1-9. It's been a long downslide for Corey Rawson. Van Loo 1-8 last year. All those teams going to need to improve by 2-3 wins if they want to make the postseason.
Of that group, Ada, I know they've been way, way down, but Bruce, as you said, they've gotten a little bit better. Over the years you've covered them, they were at one time very good, then a slide to the bottom, and now starting to crawl out. When I'm in there with their counselor Aaron Prater, their principal Mr. Lee, I think they think these couple of classes right here have a lot of talent, both in the classroom and in athletics and the arts. They think they've got some good classes coming. Watch out for Ada.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, but I saw them do their preseason scrimmage a couple of years, or one of their scrimmages. And there was a lot of negativity on that team in those years. You could see it in the players. You could hear it in the coaches.
Yep.
And if they can get past that, I think they have the potential there at Ada to get back into a postseason position.
Correct.
Moving down to Region 28, as Rebekah feared, with only 4 teams in Division 6, Region 24. How many do we have there in Region 28, Rebekah, that we follow?
15 this time.
Only 15. Oh, no. You're going to enjoy this, though. Our likely playoff teams and where I have them ranked preseason. Number 1, Marion Local. Number 2, Ansonia. Number 3, DeGraff Riverside. Number 4, Waynesfield Goshen. Number 5, Tri-Village. Number 6, Minster. The power of this region, which goes all the way down to the Ohio River, does not lie near the Ohio River. It lies up at the northern end. Also, I have Fort Laramie at number 9 as a probable playoff team. New schedule this year for Fort Laramie, playing in the Northwest Conference. A lot shorter bus rides, a lot more consistent competition. They played a lot of really good teams and some that weren't very good in the past with their independent schedule. It'll be a lot more consistent this year. The possible playoff teams, we have Sidney Lehman, New Bremen, St. Henry, Bradford, Ridgemont, Troy Christian, Fort Recovered. Man, we cover a lot of teams here. And we only have one team we cover listed as a unlikely team at the moment, and that would be Mississinawa Valley. So if we look at these again, starting from the top, several teams who look very strong computer points wise in this region. Marion Local and Ansonia, both undefeated last year, though the Flyers beat them 48-0 in the regional finals. And the scary part is, I've heard rumors lately, I believe Van has mentioned he's heard the same. There's people at Maria Stein think this could be one of their best teams in a long time, maybe one of their top 3 teams ever.
What do you do with that?
Yeah, I agree, Rebekah. What would you do? I'm hearing the same thing. If you walk into the elevator there across the street from the school, I know you do that, Bruce, in all your research. When you walk into the elevator and you talk to those guys there, they're saying, so I trust those guys. Those guys are close to the families. They're close to the kids. I mean, they could be very, very, very good. So I'm hearing the same thing. State champion level. Here we go again. Good.
They usually walk into that little shop with the drive-through carry out across the street on a bike ride, get myself a sandwich or a Diet Pepsi or some stuff. You can still get little bags of Swedish fish in there that I like,
Yep. Yeah, that's a smart move too. Those guys in there will tell you too. Absolutely. That's a smart move. I like that research.
You can get your winner's meats there too, by the way. So
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just thinking on a normal year with their regular quality turnout, they're running the table and winning championships in higher divisions. So a Division
I, s-
7 Marion local team with the best team we've turned out in decades.
I
It's
seem
it's
to re-
gonna be something.
I seem to recall there was a game last year, may have even been an early playoff game, where they did not start a senior. Maybe it was
Hmm.
just on offense. I don't remember, but that was a young Marion local team. So
I'll be interested to see at the end of the year how many Division 1 college recruits they produce.
maybe the most important indicator of all, I just saw at the Maria Stein Country Fest for like the first time in recent memory, if not ever, a Marion local quarterback won the Mercer County Quarterback Challenge at the Country Fest.
Yeah, that tells you something right there.
All right, moving on to other teams here. We mentioned Ansonia if they're 10-0 record. Talked about their loss to Marion Local in the playoffs. Marion Local averaged beating their opponents by a score of 48-1 in their playoff games last year.
Ridiculous.
Well, one came from Minster coming the closest. They scored a touchdown, only lost 28-7 to the state champs in the playoffs. Other than that, shutouts across the board. Other teams, Riverside, 9-1 last year, only lost to Ansonia in week 1 of the season, ran the table afterwards till they ran into a late charging St. Henry team in the playoffs. Waynesfield Goshen, they come down from Region 26. They had a perfect regular season last year, so expect them to finish high in the computer points. We mentioned Tri-Valley as perhaps the 5th highest projected computer points team. They were 9-1 last year. Like Riverside, they also only lost to Ansonia. Got through 2 rounds of the Division 6 playoffs last year before losing 56-51 to Anna. That would have been a game to see, I tell you. So 9-1, win 2 playoff games, and then drops down into Division 7. So watch out for Tri Village this year, I say. Next, we have Minster, 8-2 last year. Lost twice to Marion Local and once to Versailles on that schedule last year. This year, a little tougher MAC schedule. They don't get to play Parkway. Coldwater comes back on the schedule this year. So a little tougher schedule for Minster this year. And finally, we have Fort Laramie. They only went 5-5 last year, but like I said, they had a tough independent schedule last year, and they should have a little more even schedule against NWC teams, although their schedule still includes Minster, Versailles, Lima Central Catholic, Columbus Grove, and Bluffton. So there's some tough games there.
Bruce, these Loramie, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Loramie. And I love that school. I mean, it's just a great place. What a great place during my career at Bowling Green, and incredible. But you look at the schedule, the names you just rattled off there. I mean, they're in years past when they started their program, they'd have every third game was a bye. They played someone that bad. Now they played some very good teams. They played some very good teams, but every third game was against somebody that couldn't play. Those games are gone, are gone. I know they're going to meet the challenge. You just read off 5 games they got there, plus some others here in the NWC, a new era, and I'm glad for them because Loramie deserves that. They've worked hard in football.
Well, absolutely. But yeah, they're going to run to something we mentioned a couple of podcasts ago. When you get that consistently tough schedule, it's the wear and grind of the season can get you sometimes. If you don't have that every third game where you can pull the starters by halftime and get time for your backups and all that sort of thing. So, okay, teams on our fighting for their playoff lives list, more or less. Sidney Lehman, 7-3 last year, which surprised me, to be quite honest. Very good year. Only 1 win against an opponent with a winning record, however. New Bremen, 4-6 last year. They are no longer playing Mechanicsburg on their schedule. I forget who they picked up. It's someone a lot farther away, is all I remember. And as I always say, history says never count out a team who recently won 2 state championships and still has its current coach. So always watch for New Bremen. Pretty much the same thing for St. Henry. They were 3-7 last year, but they won 2 playoff games and they had that win over St. Mary's in their opener. I believe that game still happens this year. I'm thinking the Rough Riders might be out for a little revenge this year. This could be a tough week 1 game for St. Henry. Teams who may struggle a little bit. We had Bradford, pleasant surprise last year, 4-4 record. But if I remember right, they kind of dumped their tougher games in the conference last year and picked up some independent games. A smart move on their part. They had a hard time keeping the team together the year before, and they performed very well against their schedule. This time they get the entire Western Ohio Athletic Conference, the full WOAC slate here. I love that, the WOAC. I don't know why. See, we also have Ridgemont. Oh, by the way, Bradford did win 3 of their games against teams from their conference last year from the WOAC. So don't count Bradford out. They could win 4 to 5 easily again this year. Ridgemont missed the playoffs in Region 26 last year with a 4-6 record. And let's see, I believe Troy Christian snuck into the postseason in Region 24 last year with a 3-7 record. Their wins were over opponents with a combined 4 victories. Would not have been good enough to make the playoffs, even in the smaller Region 28 last year, which only had 23 teams last year. Would not have been good enough last year. It was good enough in the region they were in. They're down Region 28 now. Yeah, I don't know. We have to do a little better.
Yeah, I think Troy Christian's going to struggle to make the playoffs in this region, as you just said, Bruce. But you're getting ready to talk about Fort Recovery in just a minute here. And Fort Recovery, the magical run to the state title game in baseball, you saw that. It was one of the greatest stories in Ohio high school sports for this year. The little concern I have with, and I love Fort Recovery, is the loss of some real senior leaders. They lost some really, 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 really key guys, multi-sport guys. And I hope that they've got some of these young guys to plug the holes. I think it's going to be a tough year for Fort Recovery.
It was way back in 2015 when Fort Recovery won a state title. Doesn't feel like that long ago. They were just 1-9 last year, lost 2 MAC games in overtime, and lost 2 big non-conference computer points games by just a score. But as you mentioned, that baseball state championship game, never discount the value of having players that know what it's like to be champions, even in another sport, but they know what it's like to be champions. That can be invaluable to a football team.
Yeah, I hope some of those young guys that were on that baseball team and help them get there can turn that around in football and get that going. I mean, Troy Holman off that Fort Recovery senior class is going to Bowling Green, not to play a sport. He's just a great young man. A good example of a guy. You need Troy Holmans to keep things going at Fort Recovery. I'm sure they got the next one coming. I'm sure the next one's in the pipeline. Great young man.
Yeah, heck of a player, too.
Yep.
Followed his career. Fun to watch. He could have used a little more support, but he was fun to watch.
Yep.
That leaves us with what? Miss Cinnamon Valley? They had a winless year last year and were shut out 5 times. That's going to be a major rebuild to get that program going again as early as this year. That takes us to our 8-man football teams. And as we mentioned earlier this year, 8 teams at the moment currently signed up to play 8-man football. That's 2 more than last year. From what I can see, scouting out their Facebook page and stuff, it looks like they're going to do the 4-team playoff again this year in the postseason. They're doing something a little different. They are not playing any games in week 1 of the football season. They are waiting to start in week 2. And their regular season is going to go through the first week of the playoffs for all the other football teams. And then they'll start their postseason after that. So I'm not sure why. It may have something to do with matching up with out-of-state schools for their non-conference games. I don't know what the Michigan season looks like, but found that intriguing. Maybe we'll get the commission on again sometime, Rebekah, to tell us why this is happening.
That would be nice.
So once again, all 8 teams are in the Northern 8 Conference. The conference champion will be the de facto state champion, and that will be recognized once again this year by the Ohio High School Football Coaches Association. They will help run the state championship game and provide a nice trophy to the winner at the end. And if I remember right, quite a nice trophy to the runner-up, too.
They were pretty good trophies.
Yeah.
I think the MVP.
No word yet on where they'll play the championship game, although I don't know why they would leave Liberty Center if that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Sell out crowd for that championship game. One caveat here on these projections. As I said, Rebekah and I were at that state championship game for 8-man football last year. And it was obvious one player is huge in 8-man football. One really talented player can dominate a game in 8-man football. There's so much open space The guy that can break a tackle or two and get out in the open can just score and run all day. So we're going to have our projections here, but if one of those teams that we say may not do well has that one special player, all bets are off. They're going to win some games. So we have as our most likely playoff teams, we have 3 in that category: Toledo Christian, Holgate, and Sandusky St. Mary. We think most likely to hit that Final Four spot would be a fight between Stryker and Sebring McKinley. And that leaves in the less likely to make the playoffs, Lakeside Danbury, and the 2 new teams, Fremont St. Joseph and Southington Chalker. And again, who knows what teams brand new to 8-man football are going to do. You would think it would take them a little bit to adjust, but you just never know. They could be teams that weren't very good in 11-man, but if they have that 1 or 2 special players, they could be a tough team to beat here in this bracket. So last year, we had 7-1 Holgate was tops in the computer points in the regular season, but 7-2 Toledo Christian won the state championship game at Liberty Center. The year before was just the opposite. Toledo Christian had been the top seed. Holgate beat them for the title. So those seem to be the 2 powers in 8-man football at this moment. Sandusky St. Mary had a nice 6-2 record last year. Seemed a logical choice to return to the playoffs, although they had just been winless the year before to show how quick things can turn around in 8-man. Lakeside Danbury made the playoffs last year, but just with a 2-6 record. Sebring McKinley and Stryker also had 2 wins. Theirs were more, if I remember right, Lakeside's were both conference games and the other 2 won non-conference games. That's why Lakeside got the playoff spot. And we mentioned we have new teams, Fremont St. Joe and Southington Chalker, and I have no idea how they're going to. So,
Bruce, there's no one that follows 8-man football more than Rebekah Mon, and no one knows more than you and your daughter about this rising sport. But I want to let you know something now, some insider information, which is why you work through my agent to get me on these 3 podcasts. Rebekah, I want you to note this, Rebekah. Fremont St. Joseph, circle that team. I am hearing, and as you know, the Crimson Streaks have not been great in athletics in really anything for a while, although they do compete. Crimson Streaks, not the Blue Streaks, they're the Crimson Streaks. I'm hearing they have not one, but two guys that have come in to do one thing, and that is wreak havoc in 8-man football. That's what I'm hearing. I could be wrong. The information could be misplaced. It could be coming through the third, kind of down the line like the telephone game. But I'm hearing not one, but 2 difference makers on the field. Watch out for the Crimson Streaks. Rebekah, note that, please, for the future.
Noted.
And I will note that also because, as I said before, if you have 2 good players, from what I've seen, you got a chance to win some games in 8-man football.
Yep.
So, if you have 2 special players, I should say.
Yep.
And since I don't know much more, we're not going to get in much more depth in 8-man football. We're just going to wrap up our previews right here. Scrimmages will be starting soon. Then the regular season gets going in late August. And when the excitement of high school football is back, so will this podcast. We'll be back every week to help tell you how it affects the computer points. Van, it's been fantastic having you with us for our preview again. Nobody sees more schools in Northwest Ohio than you do, or at least than you did. That's going to wind down now, right?
Well, it's going to wind down, but I'm not gone, Bruce. There'll be more announcements to come. But you're right. At my age, I got to slow down a little bit. Thanks so much for the invitation, Rebekah. Thanks for the connection as the executive producer and all the information ahead of the podcast. Thank you very much.
All right, you get all the promo stuff this time, Rebekah.
Excellent. Well, we've had a fantastic year, so if you have any comments on any information or questions for future podcasts, please submit them to us at bdmonin@nktelco.net via email or on Twitter or X at Bruce Monin. You can also leave them in the YouTube comment section. We'll be checking that periodically. As a reminder, if you stumbled across this or were shown this podcast by a friend, football enthusiastic family member, you can find us on Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, or of course, at that YouTube channel. On all those platforms, you can search for us at Bruce Monin's.
Right. And remember, tune in after week 1 as we start another season of Bruce Monin's Computer Points. I forgot to look. I think it might be like season 7, 6.
We've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
It was pre-2019.
Yeah.
For sure.
2019. It was 2019 was the year we started. Yep.
Yeah.
So what's
Yep.
that make us?
5 years.
6th year. So 5 years in the books, our 6th season coming up. Again, as I said, we'll be here after week 1, maybe even a week before if enough interesting information comes up. I doubt it. I'm kind of busy. How about you, Rebekah?
Yeah, I'm pretty packed.
Yeah, so count on seeing us after week 1 here on Bruce Monan's Computer Points. So long, everybody.